So, hi everyone, my name is Stacey. I am the IPLS Professional Development Manager here at Pearson. So, hello and welcome to the How to Teach SEN Students Online webinar with Alan Yeoman. So, a few housekeeping rules. You'll see that the chat box, which a few people have already posted in. Hi, nice to be here again. Hi Cynthia, I think you were here at the last webinar, so thanks for joining us again. So please, any comments that you have, pop them in the chat box. Any questions that you have, pop them in the Q&A. Any technical questions, you can either send me a chat directly or pop it in the Q&A and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Any kind of other questions, what we'll do is Alan will run through the slides, the content. He'll discuss kind of how to teach SEN students online, and then we'll get to the Q&As at the end, because most likely he will have answered your question during the webinar while you're answering it. So a few more people have joined us, which is good. There's already a question in the box. Oh, hi. Hi to everyone again. So, okay, we're now at 88, 89 attendees. So I think let's get started. So I'm joined here by Alan Yeoman, who is one of our IPLS Master Trainers, has been training and working with me for a number of years. Well, just over a year for me, but has been working with Pearson for quite a number of years, creating and developing and delivering professional development, and most recently has authored IPLS Professional Development module, How to Teach SEN Students Online. So with that introduction, Alan, I will pass over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, good morning, or well, good morning from me. It may be good afternoon or maybe even good evening, wherever you are. Welcome along. I'm just glancing through the list of participants. I definitely recognise some names in there from previous events, and certainly some of the schools that I've had the pleasure of working with in the past. So welcome along. For those that don't know me, I'm Alan Yeoman, and you've possibly, I can guarantee now, you have picked up I speak with an accent. Okay, so you might want to try and guess. I'll tell you, I'm from Scotland, the most beautiful part of the United Kingdom, but possibly the part of the United Kingdom with the strongest accent. So I can't stop it. I'm really sorry. This is the way I learned to talk. So please, if you don't understand something, or if you don't understand me, or if I'm just going too quickly, use that chat and just say, Alan, slow down a little bit, please. I know Stacey's going to be keeping an eye on that. And Stacey, please interrupt me if I'm going too quickly for anybody. Okay. I'm just going to share my screen then, and we can get going. So I put this course together, this year we put this course together, and it really follows on from a previous course we had, which was just teaching SEN children. There we go. Come on. There we go. Now, I'm hoping, yeah, that should be shared now. And I'll just move my camera back over. There we go.
Oh, Alan, sorry, you're in presenter view, so we can see all of your slides.
Oh, can you? Yeah, okay,
yes.
Let me just, it doesn't look like that in mine. I'm just going to stop the share again, and I'll just very quickly, give me one moment, I'll just try that share one more time. You can let me know if it's working properly this time. Apologies. No
need to apologise, we've all been there. There we go. It's
is that better?
Yeah.
At least I'm not on mute. There we go. Right. So I was saying, I put this course together, and it does in many ways follow on from the course we wrote, just teaching SEN. But clearly over the last year, and it's longer than a year now, the whole thing, everybody moving online. I spent 4 years as a student learning to be a teacher, learning how to teach and be in a classroom. And I've never had any teaching on how to teach online. Now, this is all, and most teachers haven't, and it's something that we have to do now. And so hopefully we can get through some of that. Right, before we even get started, okay, I'm just going to ask everybody to very quickly just have a quick glance around the room. I'll be honest, I hadn't appreciated quite how many people were going to join us this morning when I put this activity in. But I'm going to ask you just glance around the room and find something that makes you smile. Right? Just find something that makes you smile. And if you can, and you've got access to the chat box, very quickly, 5 words, and only 5 words to describe the thing that makes you smile. I'm just going to give it, let's see if anybody can put anything in there. Let's see if anything else comes in. Let's see what people are thinking. Okay. Ah, there we go. The hot drink dispenser. Well done, whoever that was. Yes, I'm sure lots of us. Cups of tea, cups of coffee, photos of our family. Another nice one coming in there. Another person's smile. I even got it down to 3 words. Music. Oh, hot milk. Oh, there's. Oh no, I'm not so sure about that one myself. Right. I'll let the rest of you. I know there's still people typing away. Mine. I've got this thing here, and this is a completely pointless child's toy that just does this, and for lots of reasons, it makes me smile. Right? Lots of reasons it makes me smile. Memories, the reason I was given it, the person who bought it for me, the time when they bought it for me. Right? All these things trigger memories, making us smile. And one of the things we're going to look at is how can we make sure children are enjoying their lessons, okay, whatever their position is, whatever the lesson is, making it engaging so that as they're learning, they're smiling. Because all those things that people put in their 5 words were probably memories, their family, the feeling of that hot milky drink in the morning, the music that they listen to, trigger memories that helps with the learning. Okay. I was asked to put this together, and the first thing that came to mind was, what should we call this? Because different people call it different things. It is labelled special educational needs and teaching SEN online. And I have to be honest, I really personally struggle with that term. Because these children, these learners, to me, are not special. They're different. The way they learn, the way they act, their abilities are different perhaps from many of the other children, but that doesn't make them special to me. It just makes them different. Other places call it lots of other things, you know, additional support needs, learning support, pupil support. The one that's disappeared off the bottom of my slide, unfortunately, additional learning support. And it's one that I quite like. The key words in all of this, though, is not special. The key word is support and learning. And I want us all to keep that in mind when we're thinking about these pupils and what we're actually doing with them. We're not trying to fix them. 2 reasons. Okay, one, we can't. Whatever that difficulty is, we can't fix it. We can support it, we can help it, and we can help overcome it, but we can't fix it. And the second reason, it doesn't need fixed. Just because someone's got a difficulty with reading or with numbers or some kind of physical difficulty, it does not need fixed. It just needs help and support. Okay. What we can do though, okay, we're the teacher, we're the adult, okay, we're the grown up in the classroom, okay. What we can do is use our teaching skills and use different teaching methods to break down those barriers so that the child who has difficulty with reading finds a way of being able to cope and finds a way of being able to read in their own way. And we need to remember that these are, whatever these difficulties are, the children face this every single day. Okay? I wear glasses, okay? No one's ever going to fix my eyes. Okay, my eyes don't need fixed, but we can overcome that difficulty by wearing glasses. Okay, think about it like that, and that will keep us in the right path for where we're going with these children. The most common difficulties now, difficulties and learning needs can cover a whole range of things. It can be physical needs, it can be emotional needs, you know, all that range. These are what we're really going to try and focus on today. The physical needs is a whole other area, you know, a whole other area we could spend another whole day looking at if we wanted. This is what we're going to try and focus on. So we've got those 5 common ones that are up there. I'm sure everybody's seen or heard or knows a bit about some of those. And I'm sure there's some people in the room are experts in some of these, because that's your field. That's where you work. But let's just take a moment to remind ourselves of what they are, so that when we come to look at the teaching, we can think about what the barrier actually is. So dyslexia, probably the most commonly known one. The children who have problems or difficulties with reading and spelling. And I want to emphasize it's reading and spelling, not talking, not listening, not thinking, none of those things, but reading and spelling. And we all learned, and all the rest of the class we work with, they've learned their phonics. But some children just don't seem to get it. Their brain doesn't take it in some way. Giving those children instructions. And if I said to my class, right, good morning, boys and girls, in you come, workbooks out. I want you to put the date up in the top right-hand corner. I want you to put the title in the middle of the top line, and I want you to underline it. And then I want you to start your first paragraph with a 2-centimetre indentation. There was a whole list of instructions. Dyslexic children cannot compute all those instructions. And we'll tell them the instructions, they'll get their bit of paper or their workbook out and they'll look at it and they'll go, there was something about the date. I'll put the date on it. You know, they just cannot remember these things. It's not that they're forgetful. It's not that they weren't listening. They can't. Okay. And mixing up left and right. Mixing up left and right, you know, whether it's left hand, right hand. We've told them that your watch is on your left hand. So when we say left, think about your watch. We can give them reminders. You'll say, okay, everybody, left hand up, and they'll go. Because, you know, might as well hedge my bets and put both hands up. They can't do it. They just can't. And to give you, for those, I know some of you will know a lot about this, but for those that don't, and to try and give us a greater appreciation of what dyslexia is. Okay, everybody here, we know that that is a chair. Okay, everybody here will see a chair, and I could ask you to type what you think it is. Everybody would have written chair, I can guarantee it. If I do that, it's still a chair. Every single one of us can look at that. Okay, it's upside down, but it's a chair. That's still a chair, and that's still a chair. If we had dyslexia, all we would see is chair. We wouldn't see upside down, we wouldn't see back to front, we wouldn't see inside out, we'd just see chair, which is what we can all see. If you take that into how we write, there's a chair. That could be a D. That could be a P by flipping it upside down. That suddenly becomes a B by turning it over. And if we do it both ways, it becomes a Q. But with dyslexia, all you see is chair. You can't actually differentiate between those letters. And you will see children writing the wrong letters. Back to that phonetic awareness. They'll look at this one here, okay? The first upside down chair, and all they will see is D, because that's the shape. And to make matters even worse for them, sometimes when they're looking at text, this is happening. The text is moving on their screen. Now, there's lots of things we can do to overcome that, and we'll talk about them as we go along. But you can start to appreciate when things are moving and we can't work out what's top, bottom, left, right, inside out, upside down, what hope have we actually got? You can see the barrier that's really there for children. Dyscalculia, very similar, but related to numbers. Okay? We'll see lots of the same things going on, as if, you know, the same things as we saw with dyslexia. They can't count in sequence. Okay? We can all go 1, 2, 3, 4. We can even be really clever and start 63, 64, 65. We could do it backwards. We can probably all do it in 2s or 10s if we wanted. With those children, no. And again, it's not that they've forgotten the numbers. It's not that they weren't listening. Their brains will not compute those numbers. And to make things even worse for them, mathematical signs, looking at them and seeing the difference between the addition sum and the division sum, they just look the same. Multiply and divide, they look the same to them. They can't see that. They just don't see what it's doing or what it's doing. And learning mathematical rules, we all know lots of shortcuts. We know that an odd number times an odd number is an odd number. An odd number times an even number will be an even number. Keeping it really basic, there's many more further, much more advanced mathematical rules we could look at. They can't take them on. Okay. I'm sure, just to give you a little bit of an example for that, if you've got a pen and paper, I'm just going to ask you to answer these two, but I'm going to ask you to put down the wrong answer. Do something wrong. Okay, write 102, calculate 28 plus 37. Okay. We all know the answers to them. We can all do that. But children with dyscalculia, I'm just going to try and annotate on here. Here we go. I'm sure lots of us have seen children doing things like this. I guess some of you might have done this as well when I asked you to do it wrong. Right, 100, there's my 100, and there's my 2. Place value has gone out the window because as far as they're concerned, they have written 102. And the other one, 28 add 37. I just find my mouse again. Now my mouse has managed to disappear. Where's my mouse? Oh, he's back. There it's there. Some children might do 28 add 37. There we go, miss. There's my answer. I'm sure lots of you have seen things like that in your class. Just going to clear my scribblings off my. There we go. Clear them all off. That's the kind of thing that we would expect from children with that. Oh, I'll just click and bring them all up. Dyspraxia is that child who has not got those fine or gross motor skills. I'm a primary school teacher. I'm just going to find a pencil. There we go. And I've spent hours teaching children, this is how I want you to hold your pencil. Your 2 fingers and your thumb, and we're going to hold it there. And we're going to start our writing. And I'm sure we've all been there. And as I'm doing that lesson, 60, 70, 80% of my class are making a good attempt at that. And then there's a student like this, doing this, and there's another student like this with fingers and thumbs all over the place, or the same would apply left-handed. They cannot manipulate their fingers like that. And it's not just the fine skills, it's those big skills, the walking down a corridor, thinking about PE lessons. They will bump into things, they will bump into other people. And planning movements. So I'll take the example of that PE lesson again. Today, we're going to be doing forward rolls. So the whole sequence, we run up for 3 steps, we put our hands down, we put our head under, we tuck, we push, we roll, and we come up onto our feet. We've got to think that through. We've got to plan that in our head. Child with dyspraxia, they might manage the run up to the mat and then just hands down their face because they can't plan it. Their brain will not let them put those movements together to actually make one final movement. Triple jump, no, the hop, skip and jump, never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Asperger's, again, these are all common. I'm sure things that everybody has seen. I'll just bring up the points on that one. Real difficulty communicating. And unlike the dyslexia, it's the verbal communication that they have real difficulty with. They can get the thoughts in their head, but getting them out in some meaningful way is very confusing for them. Putting them into groups and socialising, they're not going to mix well. And they can often show almost aggressive behaviour, and it's fear and anxiety that's coming out for them. They know that they can't cope with that, and it all builds up. And you'll often find that children or adults, anybody with Asperger's, they become tunnel vision and super focused on one thing. Often they will have, ask them who scored all the World Cup goals in given year, and they can probably reel them all off, give you every single score, because they get so tunnel vision on one particular thing. Maybe not sport, anything at all. They become so focused on it. And finally, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. We've all seen this to some extent. The child, we're working away and we've planned and we've planned and we've planned, whether it's in class or online. That child who's just staring out the window, fidgeting, they can't sit still, they're clicking their pen, all those kind of things. It's they can't sit still. We had to remember that magic word can't. Okay, they cannot do it. No matter, telling them to sit still is not going to help. That's going to make things worse. Okay, all those things we need to sort of keep in mind. So, what does all of that mean? There's the common things that we will be faced with, and what the symptoms of those are and how it affects us in some ways. Well, it can mean all of these things. And I've had to go small text here, I'm afraid. Hopefully you can all just see all of these coming in. I'm just going to give you a moment or two just to glance through them. Right? I'm not going to ask you if you recognise any of those behaviours in yourself. I'm not going to ask you that. But I'm just going to say, do you recognise any of those behaviours in the pupils that you have taught or the pupils that you teach? I can guarantee we've all seen bits of these. These are not exclusive in any way. You will have crossovers between them all. But if we just look at some of these, and we have to start thinking about how we're going to work with these and how we're going to work online. Unable to read texts. Everything I've done so far has been text-based with a couple of pictures on the screen. I've talked around them, but if you've got someone and you're presenting to your class and you put up some slides and they can't read them, instantly the attention has gone. They can't read it. They're not engaged in any way. Unable to express themselves in writing. Rituals and obsessions. Okay, can't express what they're thinking. I've got this brilliant idea for the story that I'm going to be writing. I know exactly what I'm going to put into it, but I can't. It's all stuck inside. The other one I was looking for was, aggressive and anxious. That's something we really don't want in our class. I'm sure we've all seen bits of that, and we'll all be aware we need to find ways of dealing with that in our class. And today we're now going to look at dealing with those things online. Okay? But remember, we're not changing the learning, we're changing the teaching. We still want the pupils to be learning the same. We just want to find ways of being able to teach them. Whether we're calling it SEN, support needs, learning needs, whatever. Until, well, for me at least, until a year and a bit ago, most of this was done in school. We did some online learning where we are, and we did lots of bits of it and this kind of thing and training online, but the actual teaching of the pupils was done in class. And providing additional support was relatively easy if we had the resources, if we had access to another adult. another teaching assistant or whatever their role was in the class to work with those pupils. Access to additional resources. My class, and I meant to bring them and lay them out, and I completely forgot this morning. We use little maths counters all the time. I am primary based, and it's not just down the school we use them, right the way up, right across the primary, we use little counters because it helps with their maths and showing their thinking and explaining their understanding with them. My class, they're about a centimetre. They're about a centimetre. But I've got a pupil with Asperger's. They could not use those little counters. They've got big counters. So we can put other resources in place for them. But we can't do that online. So we need to think about how do we address these issues online. Okay. So both courses that we have, whether it's the teaching face-to-face or the teaching online, we talk about the 5 key principles, and they're the same for both. It's the same 5 principles. So first of all, we need to think about the lesson, and we need to break it down into small steps. If we're in a class, traditional teaching, very traditional teaching, we would do some teaching. We would explain what we were going to do, whatever subject it was. Okay, whatever subject we're working on, this is what we're doing. We'd show the new method, we'd carry out the experiment, we'd talk about report writing, whatever we were going to be doing. And then we'd set the children the task of doing it. And we would monitor that. We'd be watching them, talking to them, checking their work as they're going along. We can't do that online. So we need to break it down into little small steps. Do a little bit, let them do something, and then we see what they've done. Do the next bit of teaching, let them try that, and then they report back on what they've done. And it slows things down. It will take longer, whether we want it to or not. We have to slow down and have these tiny little steps. I don't think this has anything to do with SEN. This is teaching. If our class aren't motivated and engaged, they're not going to be part of the lesson. But with SEN, thinking about all those barriers, we have to overcome those barriers to keep them motivated and keep them engaged. And I'm going to go through each of these in a lot more detail. Okay? We have to have the chance to talk. We all talk to ourselves. I guarantee every single person here in the last 24 hours has talked to themselves about something. It's best that we don't do it in the queue at the supermarket. Try not to talk out loud there. People will turn and look at you. And this is personal experience because I know I've done it. But by talking, okay, we can formulate our ideas. Okay, we get to sort of put into order what it is we want to do, what we want to say, the ideas that we want to get across. And when it says talk, we saw earlier on that some children can't do that. They have to have some other way. So I've said talk, but it could be some kind of visual representation rather than a verbal representation. We have to praise their efforts. And again, particularly with SEN, and going back to those small steps, praise all the way along the way. Okay? I'm going to visit that in more detail as we go along, but the key word there is effort. The child who has worked hard, the child who has put the effort in and got through it, they're the ones we want to praise. And finally, the feedback that we give. Whatever children have been working with, okay, they have to, they can be better. Everybody can improve, but we have to be really specific. And we'll look at that. Giving somebody an A, a B, or a C, or an A+, or writing could be better, doesn't help. Okay, just to say, yeah, okay, I know it could be better, but I don't know how. We have to be very specific and focus on one thing so that they can see how it could improve. So I'm just checking, I think we're okay for time. What I want to do is just take those 5 key principles and try and put them into the context of some lessons to give you an idea of the kinds of things we really need to be thinking about. So let's take with those small steps. Okay? Before you even start teaching, your first step is this, okay? Make sure the children have got what they need. Okay, now I've taken a maths lesson. This is from year 2 using Power Maths. Now, I would have done that yesterday. Yesterday for today's lesson, this is what you are going to need. Now, I have made some big assumptions here. These children are working online. I've made the assumption that they have got these things. And I've also made an assumption that they have got access to online. That's not something that this is going to fix in any way. So we just have to assume that these things are in place. Okay? Without those things, the children will not be able to complete the lesson. Okay? They've got to have a pencil. We're going to be doing some counting tomorrow, so we've got to have our counters and we've got to have our number lines and we've got to have our workbook, because that's the bit they're going to be working in as we go along. Okay? So there's the first step. That's what you're going to need. And I wouldn't even start the lesson until those pupils had those things or something they could use instead of them. All the IPLS material comes with those ready-made plans, whether it's primary or secondary. You've got those plans. Okay, so I know that from many of you have used them as part of the training, and we've gone through them and we've looked at those plans and how we actually work them in the classroom. Okay, golden rule for those plans. Okay, they won't work online. Okay, so there's a massive thing for us to think about. We've got all this material and we're ready to teach it. What's there will not work online because they're written for face-to-face. I think we have to go back to that small step, look at it and build in those checkpoints, particularly with our SEN pupils. Okay, thinking what we can't do is that traditional teach and let them go to go on with it, because that's where the misconception will kick in. The child will go off at a tangent. We've got to have those checkpoints so that we're making sure they're going back online with us. Show me what you've done, tell me what you've done, explain what you have done. Okay. One of the schools I was working with last week, before we got to this part, we were just talking about working online in general. And one of the teachers was saying was, they were really disappointed in their class because they'd set them a task and they'd all come back with something completely different. Like two possibilities there. One, the class, they'd all been very creative, or 2, the instructions hadn't been clear. Okay. Now, having looked at it, I know which one it was, but if that teacher had built in checkpoints to make sure the children were on the right track as they were going along and doing what they needed to do each bit, that wouldn't have happened. Okay. So we've got to keep checking their progress. And we've got to keep checking and asking them, we can't just say, do you understand? Well, I've got to ask them, right, show me what you did. Explain what you did in some way so that we're actually checking their understanding. And then we step in and give that additional support where it's needed. Think about the plans, think about the small steps. Another example, this is one taken from year 6. This is one that we do every year. I know lots of us do every year. And it's based around the Great Debate. So if we were doing this in class, we'd use the existing planning that's there, divide the class up, and we'd put them into groups and we'd get them to put together their side of the debate. We'd talk about what they had to do and let them go and do it. With this, we've got to break it down into those tiny little steps. First thing I did with this one, right, the debate we were doing was, should Tesco's, because that's our local supermarket, be allowed to build a new super hyper metro, whatever they're called, Tesco Plus in the village. That's what that was the debate, and clearly there's lots of arguments for and against. All they had to do first of all was write down 5 things, 5 ideas, either for or against, and then we checked them. Okay. And then we put them into groups. Remember that time to talk. We put them into groups. Now we use Zoom, so we could use breakout rooms where they actually had a chance to talk to each other and share their 5 ideas with the rest of the group. And then the group had to agree on a shared set of 5. So take all the ideas from everybody. And again, I'm checking each point as we go along. Once they had the shared set of 5, they had to put them into order. And finally, they had to write a paragraph for each point as a group. Okay. But you can see how I broke that down, because normally it would have been, right, this is what you've got to do. I want you to, off you go and come up with your argument. Okay. It's broken down with all these little checkpoints. And at every point, I could check understanding and check what they were doing and give them those opportunities. Okay. Keeping children, so let's move on to number 2, because I think we're maybe slightly going to run over time slightly. Okay. Keeping children motivated. Okay. We've all had this. I won't do it. The child is just sitting there. Okay. Because of the barriers that they've got in place. Okay. I won't do it. I can't do it. I want, now we're moving forward. I want to do it. How do I do it? I'll try to do it. Okay. Every child is somewhere along that journey. And thinking about our SEN pupils, they're probably down here, okay, somewhere down here. By keeping them motivated, okay, we can move them up that. If we can get them up to, I want to do it, suddenly that's where they're engaged. At that point, okay, I want to do it, I don't know how to do it yet. There's that magic word yet. I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to find out. We've got to push them up that to get to the top to where they have done it. We need to know where each of our pupils is. We need to know where they all sit, is or are, okay, where they are on that scale, and look at how we move them along that. And there are a number of things we can do. One of the things that I do, and we've not done it today, I build in brain breaks. So at each of those checkpoints, we reach a checkpoint, we're working through the lesson, and we get to do something. It might only take 30 seconds. Go and find something that makes you smile. Go and find something that begins with the letter C. Go and find something that you use every day. Go and find something that you've not used in the last week. Whatever it may be. They just run about their house, wherever they're working, find something, bring it back to the camera and share with everybody. Keeping them motivated, keeping them active. Our job is to keep them motivated. That's it. That's what we should be doing. We need to keep them motivated. So we need to be asking ourselves, okay, before we even start, is this achievable? Have I set a realistic task and a realistic target for my pupils? Because if I have, that's fine. If I haven't, they're not going to be motivated. They're going to be in the, I don't even want to do it because it's far too difficult for me. Going back to the planning, all the planning's got the prerequisites. We need to look at them and how we can actually achieve them with them. Okay. Is it engaging? Because if it's not, again, that's our responsibility. And then, is it even worth the effort? Now, that's from the pupil's perspective. Is there any point in me putting the effort into this? There has to be something at the end, whether it's one of those little brain breaks or some kind of reward or some kind of at least sense of achievement when they reach the end of it. So, and I think that, to me, that one there, is it worth the effort? Is it worth my effort? If I put hours of planning and preparation into a 20-minute lesson, is it worth the pupil's effort? What makes them want? Just going back to that previous slide, right? If it's worth the effort, they're already there. They already want to do it. So we've got to make sure we've got that for them. Opportunities to talk. Now again, you can use the technology for this, that whether it's the breakout rooms, turning microphones on, putting them into small groups. We all talk to ourselves. I said that already. Okay? We all do it. We all do it. We need to give them those opportunities to talk to us, to talk to each other, and to talk in a group. Thinking back to some of those things we talked about, some children will not work well in a group. Okay? We need to think, okay, so that group's going to go there, and they're okay to work together, but I'm going to stay with these pupils, and I'm going to talk to them, and they are going to talk to me. But we need to build in lots and lots of opportunity to talk. Same as we would face-to-face. We can have discussion groups and all sorts of things going on in our classes. They need to be able to talk online. So again, I've made a big assumption that they have got access to something with a microphone, enabling them to talk. Praising wisely. You saw that one earlier on. I talked about praising effort. What is actually praiseworthy? And this is a real standout for our additional support children. Okay. Do we praise talent? Do we praise being right? Do we praise doing things quickly and being neat and praising intelligence? When I was at school, that's what was praised. Oh, well done, you've finished first. That's lovely, neat work. Oh, you've got everything right. We've got to remember, some of our children can't always be right. They can't be quick. They can't be neat. Okay, and I would question the word intelligence and talent. Intelligence isn't something that somebody has. That's something that everybody has, and it's how we use that. And how, if we could talk about growth mindsets and all the work about Carol Dweck and our growth mindsets. Where we want to praise is the child who has worked hard, has put in effort. The child who's had a go. They might not have got the right answer. Okay, and yes, that's important, but we're going to praise them for having a go, for being part of it, for having the courage to stand up and think, right, I can have a go at this. I know a bit of it. And that's what's all going to help overcome some of those things. The child who gets anxious about writing, okay, their spelling's terrible. Okay, I was like that at school. My spelling's still not very good. I hope I've not had any typos or spelling mistakes on my slides. I'm sure someone will tell me if I do. But the child who's written out what they wanted to do, B's and D's and P's and Q's upside down, all in the wrong place. But you know what? They've tried. They've used what they've known, and they've accepted that, they're not going to be as quick as other people. They're not going to be as neat as other people, but they've had a go and they've put in effort. And that's actually what we need to think about as praiseworthy, especially with these children. Okay? They've worked hard, and it's well done. You've worked hard. The other children, moving slightly away from our SEN or our additional supports, the child who hands in the work and it's beautiful and neat and it's all right. Okay? If you get a chance to read some of the growth mindset material, the thing we should be saying to them is, I'm sorry, I've wasted your time. Let's find something new. Let's do something a bit more challenging. Because they haven't worked hard. They've just churned out a lovely looking piece of work. Those that put in the effort, focus on them. So there's the kinds of things that are praiseworthy. And again, keep that in mind when you come to giving feedback. Okay. I've just grabbed some screenshots of things there that we had. The one thing that stands out to me about them, first off, red pen. I'm not a fan of red pen. Red pen's very negative. Even if I've written A+, excellent, okay? Or that one under the back there, I've covered it up slightly, could do better. what's the child meant to do with that? They've got no way of knowing, okay, I could do better, fine, how? We need to be very specific in our feedback. We need to focus on the positives and then say, right, here's how to improve. Other courses that we run, and I'm sure there'll be webinars on them, is based around the idea of active learning. And one of the ones I really like is 2 stars and a wish. Okay? So I find 2 positives. The positives might be that it's, they've put in some effort, they've tried hard, or they've managed to get some ideas down in paper. Focus on the positives and raise that esteem, raise that self-esteem for those children. And then one thing, right, okay, so let's just have a look at the, maybe it's a spelling format, or maybe it's to do with your report writing, listing the resources or whatever. Find one thing to improve, and that's what they can focus on next time. So all those things are what we need to think about when we're teaching SEN. Or I keep calling it SEN, and I don't like SEN. Additional support, whatever it may be. We can use lots of things, lots of tools when we're working online. We're on Zoom today. You might use Teams, you might use Google Hangout, you might use Adobe Connect. You will use some format for teaching online. Okay? They all have the same tools. The button's in a different place, but they all do the same thing. We need to use that interactivity. Okay? And whether we're using a shared whiteboard, as I've tried to put on there, so that the children are not, as you've been doing, sitting, listening. They have to be part of that lesson. We have to use the interactivity. We need to use the chat function or the Q&A function to allow them to actually be in the lesson and not just sitting isolated. Okay? We use breakout rooms a lot. Okay? We talked earlier on about how some children cannot socialise. They can't get their ideas out. The idea of speaking to the whole class just gives them the fear. Use breakout rooms. And Zoom, you can organise your breakout rooms. You can choose who's working together. They can go into that room and have a chance to talk. We can join them. We can go in and see how they're getting on and make sure they're still on task. But use the breakout rooms to give them those opportunities. Closed captioning. Now, again, it's a terrible screenshot, but I turned on closed captioning. You can have automatic subtitles coming up. All sorts of things you can do with that. And other things you can do is record what you do, whatever it may be, and make that recording available to the pupils who need it. Zoom is, Zoom's what we are using. All these other ones, there's a record button. You just hit record, and it then saves whatever you want it to save, and you can give your pupils access to it. So they can go back and watch the lesson part again, watch the teaching again, hear you talking again, and not just focusing on the text. Because we don't all learn everything the first time. Okay. And finally, on the online tools, you'll have noticed, if you've been on other webinars or other of our courses, we have these slides, and we have a template that we use. You'll notice that they have this yellow background on all of them. For dyslexia, we have to be very, very careful with the fonts and the colours that we use, because that black font against a pastel colour is by far the best. It does make reading and seeing text much easier. It stops a lot of that. I mentioned earlier on, the text looks like it's moving. That can help a lot. There are lots of dyslexic friendly fonts. The one I've chosen today is Arial. It's a commonly available font, and it works well. Comic Sans is another one. I know there's lots of views around Comic Sans, positive and negative. I actually don't mind it. I just went with Arial because it's one that everybody will probably have. Finally, I think I'm aware of the time here. I'm just going to give a couple of top tips. I'm just going to bring them all up here. Whatever platform you're using, make sure you know it. Okay? Make sure you know where that button is to share your screen, and you, unlike I did this morning, make sure you share the right screen with them. Right? When I started teaching online, what I actually had was, while I had this screen and we were all working together in this, I had a little iPad or a tablet or something sitting at the side, logged on as a pupil. So I could, when I was working, I could glance at that and I could see exactly what the pupils could see. That's that, have another device if you can. Okay? And it gives you that confidence. We need to be confident when we're doing this. We need to be able to confidently say, right, now you can see my screen. Not, well, hopefully you can see my screen now, because that instantly, well, how do I know if I can see your screen? I don't know what your screen looks like. We all need to have a place to work. And again, going back to some of our SEN pupils, the easily distracted ones. Okay, I'm lucky I've got this room in my house where I'm able to work. Okay, I have made sure the dog has been fed. I have got my phone on silent. There are other people in my house today. My door is closed. That means they know they do not come into this room. Right? Because when we're teaching online, if we're working from home, okay, which some of us have been, we're basically letting our children into our house. And we need to think about what's behind us. Is the cat there? Have we got posters on the wall? You know, are they, and our home life's very different from our school life, you know, and stuff we've got in our house we wouldn't have in school. What's actually behind us, right? And smile. Whether you're having the worst day ever, look like you want to be there. That's back to that motivation and engagement. And finally, it's not going to be perfect. No matter what we do, you know, no matter what we do, it's not going to be perfect. Things that we thought we planned for, we haven't planned for. Something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. And just accept that. And just say, oh, hold on, that didn't work. Let's just quickly try that one again. Whatever you need to do. Right. I know I've gone over time, but that's a Scottish trait, I'm afraid. We're not quiet. We're not quiet. So I know there's quite a few questions come in. I know Stacey's maybe been sort of looking through these. I know there's a couple of them I have possibly answered as we're going along. So I'm going to pass to Stacey and see what we've got in the way of questions.
Yeah, of course. We've got a few minutes for questions. Any questions that we don't get to, myself and Alan can kind of write up a reply, and then it will be sent with the recording of this session to you. So don't feel that if we haven't answered a question now, we won't answer it at all. We will. It will just be at a later date. So apologies for that. There's quite a few questions around kind of how easy it is to teach SEN students online. And I think it's kind of it's going to have its challenges, as always.
I think that the first thing I would say is it's not easy. Now, let's be honest, it's not easy. I would actually say that teaching online is not easy. I'm just trying to get back to one of the slides I showed earlier on. To make it easier, that's the slide I want there, I think. Okay. There's what we do at the moment will not work. What we do in the classroom will not work online. And there are some subjects I would say cannot really be taught effectively online. You know, mainstream, if we take maths, language, science, geography, history, I think, yep, those kind of things fine. Drama, PE. I know people do teach music online. I've been part of that. It works, but it's definitely not as effective as face-to-face. To make it easier, I think you have to go back to your plan and just think, right, I've got that child and that child can't go in a group. that child will not be able to read what I'm putting up on screen. That child, when I ask them to explain, will not be able to tell me vocally. You know, be aware of what the difficulties are and build that into your plan by having those little steps and those checkpoints. I think that's one of the biggest things I would say that's going to make things easier. Okay.
Cool, thank you. Kind of sticking with the breaking it down to smaller steps, checking progress. Suitable assessments for SEN students or additional needs students, do you have any kind of top tips or advice to how to be suitably assess SEN students?
I think one of the things we have to look at with that is, what are we assessing? So if we take the I'm trying to think, good example would be the reading. So we often do, and again, I apologize, I know I'm being quite primary focused here. We give a reading test where they have to write their answer, okay? And their writing's not going to be able to up to the standard. It's a much lower standard than their reading. Because if they've got dyslexia, there's nothing, you know, their writing's one of the biggest barriers. Maybe we have to look at how they record their answers. Okay? Maybe we give them a scribe. Maybe they just tell us the answer. You know, so I think we have to look at what are we assessing as opposed to how are they recording their answers, and put something in place for that to really help them. If we're looking for specific SEN assessment material, that's something that it does exist. I'll be honest, I'm not aware of anything from Pearson's that maybe there is. It's not something I'm aware of, and I couldn't really comment on what someone else does because it's not something I've really used myself. But I think, but look at what that barrier is and how can we support it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some resources that we can find to support with that. Just give me a few days to find them, and then I'll definitely kind of send them all out to you. And then I think one final question before we all head off, which I think is actually quite a nice one to finish on. How do we bridge the gap when we all go back into a physical school?
I've just seen that one there, absolutely. And I think that's something that's paramount at the moment. So there are things out there which would help you. And I know that Pearson's have produced a lot of ready to progress material where we've focused on what were the important bits that have been or potentially been missed. Okay. I'm just going to leave it on this slide here. Oh, take it back to that slide there. All the planning that's there, and I know it's tiny little writing, but up in the top there, and all of our plans, if I can just find my pen, it is, I think, I can't see it, it's so small, but basically that, oh dear, it's not writing, is it? There we go. That area up there, okay, that one up there, that top bit, that includes the prerequisites. And that's basically the bits that are going to be missing for some pupils. We are, once we're back in school, we're not just going to say, right, we're just going to pick up as if we're a normal year 5 or a normal year 12. We are going to have to spend time gap filling and filling in those gaps. I know that one of the other things I'm involved with is helping schools move from one scheme of work to a new scheme of work. And it doesn't matter if it's maths, English, science, whatever, things are going to be different. And we can't just pick up a new thing because things will be different and taught in a different order, and there's going to be gaps. And just accept that there's gaps. And some children will need pre-teaching and some children will need gap filling so that they're actually ready for that lesson. I can't remember the slide that said, is this achievable? If we just all start back and pick up as if it was normal, it's not going to be achievable. So make it achievable by doing that gap filling.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, and unfortunately we don't have any more time to answer all the questions. I would love to. So what I will do is I've made a note of them and we will write them up as replies and send them out to you all. But I just want to say thank you everyone for your engagement and your interaction, and thank you to Alan as well for the fantastic session. it has been great. There's lots of positive and nice comments in the chat box for you as well, which is lovely. I've popped my email address in the chat box. If you do have any more questions that we didn't get round to, please do feel free to email me. The session has been recorded, so will be available to watch at a later date. I'll send you all a link to that shortly, and then anyone else that couldn't attend. Next week, Alan has joined me on a podcast called Beyond the IPLS Classroom, and again, we're talking about how to teach SEN students online. So if you just want that 20-minute refresher, go and check it out. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, it's all available on there from next week. But I don't think there's anything left for me to say, but apart from thank you everyone, and thank you to Alan.
Thank you everybody, and I hope to see you all again soon.
Yep. Thank you everyone. Goodbye.
Okay. Thanks then.